I think people understood that Miles was shy, and that we all understood that Miles, like Leonard Bernstein, the first priority is to make the band. No, I was not surprised because I knew he had that kind of heart. I think only ignorant people are like cows that regurgitate and eat the same thing. I always knew that Miles Davis was like Martin Luther King. He was for all people. An angel is one that says for the highest good of all people. I never saw Miles Davis on black magazines. I saw an interview like...
Few guitarists have ever fused sound and spirit as seamlessly as Carlos Santana. With a career spanning over 5 decades, Santana isn't just known for his legendary tone. He's revered for infusing his music with soul, spirituality, and a global heartbeat. From the Latin rhythms of Black Magic Woman to the genre-blending magic of smooth, Santana has carved out a place in rock history that feels otherworldly. But Santana's cosmic sound didn't manifest from thin air. Behind his signature sustain, behind those soaring notes, lies a deep well of influence. Guitarists who didn't just play, but felt. These weren't just technicians of the fretboard. They were spiritual mentors whose music transformed the way Carlos approached his craft and even life itself. Today, we dive into the 5 guitarists who shaped the musical and emotional soul of Carlos Santana. These are the legends who taught him that the guitar can speak every language, and sometimes even touch the divine.
The very first time was in Tanglewood. My band had just played Woodstock, so we were really big. We were big like U2 or somebody like that. And so Bill Graham said, who would you like to open up for you or to work with, you know? I said, Miles Davis. He goes, okay, I'll call him, you know. Miles Davis and Bill Graham were supremely important in my life because Miles Davis taught me about music and Bill Graham taught me about business, you know, and it was funny to see them both together because they were always, it was an experience to see both of them together. Yeah, they both would sharpen their machetes with each other, you know. But it was at Tanglewood. He drove in on a yellow Lamborghini or Ferrari, one of those.
There's a story about that. He came late, or?
Yes. Oh, he came in late. Yes. No, with us he didn't. He came in late at the Fillmore because he didn't want to open up for Steve Miller. But for some reason he respected enough to. It was the Voices of East Harlem's and Miles Davis and Tanglewood and Santana. I have this video. It's superb quality. Hopefully one of these days we'll see it. Miles sounds so strong because he was still boxing. And his notes, you know, it's like Jimi Hendrix. It's very dynamic, very powerful, you know, full of fire and passion. That's the first time that I met him, you know. Then he came to the rest of the concerts. We played at the Fillmore East 3 nights in a row, and he was there 3 nights in a row. And I remember telling him, Miles, Jack Johnson is incredible. He goes, ain't it though? I said, yeah, it is, you know, and that's the album that I believe scared Jimi Hendrix, because Miles told Jimi Hendrix, I'm going to put one of the baddest rock and roll bands in, you know, and so it was Billy Cobham and John McLaughlin and Herbie Hancock and like that, you know, Steve Grossman.
When Carlos Santana first heard Wes Montgomery, it wasn't just another jazz guitarist. It was as if the instrument had a voice. Montgomery's approach to guitar playing was revolutionary. Thumb picking instead of a pick, octave melodies, and a warmth that made every note feel human. For a young Santana trying to find his sound in the mid-60s, Montgomery's style opened entirely new dimensions. Santana reportedly spent hours listening to the incredible jazz guitar of Wes Montgomery and smoking at the half note. What stood out wasn't just the technical brilliance, but the intention behind each note. There's no waste, no ego, just pure musical conversation. Santana would tell his band members. For him, Montgomery was the embodiment of making every note count, of treating each sound as sacred. But more than just technique, Wes offered Santana a spiritual roadmap. He could play melody, harmony, and rhythm all at the same time and make it sound natural. Carlos shared in an interview. This ability to multitask musically mirrored Santana's future fusion of Latin, rock, and jazz elements. Even more profound was Wes's emotional restraint. His playing never screamed, it spoke. Santana took that lesson to heart, translating it into his own signature sustained heavy solos, where one bent note could carry an entire story. Wes Montgomery didn't just influence Santana's jazz phrasing. He showed him that the guitar, when played with heart and humility, could be an instrument of both joy and healing. In Carlos's eyes, Wes didn't just play jazz. He played truth.
I remember he was very nervous when I asked Bill Graham, Amnesty International will not be complete unless Miles Davis is there. Bill Graham said, okay, I'll call him. So then Bill Graham called me like around 3 o'clock in the morning, San Francisco time. And he says, I know it's late and I'm sorry to wake you up, but he said yes. Who said yes? He says, Miles Davis. He says he's going to play at the Amnesty International. And see, Bill Graham is the first person who told me if there was only one record that I could have and I was stuck in an island, it would be Sketches of Spain. Yeah, so that's how much he adored Miles, even though Miles always picked on him. The first thing Miles would say to Bill Graham is, hi, Jew boy. How you doing, Jew boy? And stuff like that. So I knew they had a special relationship by the way they talked to each other. He was more tender with me, so I guess he left me off the hook. But when we played, Miles was really cranky when I went backstage. Bill says, Miles is here and he's going to play, I didn't bring my band that day. I jammed with Neville Brothers and Ruin Blades and Miles and all in one day. And, I told Miles, listen, I don't have to jam. I just want you to play here. He goes, yeah, right. I said, no, I'm serious, man. I don't care what Bill says. To me, I'm just happy that you're here and that your music is going to be presented, like that. Okay, And then he grabbed my pants and he goes, get out of my shit, man. Don't be wearing my shit, because I have some really nice pants, It's like, I said, okay, Miles, After we played, he was very kind. After we played, it was a different person. He said, hey, Carlos. I said, yeah. Come here. How was it for you? Could you hear out there? He says, yeah, I could hear pretty good, man. Plus, I can move around, Yeah, me too. Yeah. Some of the guys sitting down, I feel sorry for them because they the monitors were not right. But I move around, so I make my own sound. Stuff like that.
Gábor Szabó wasn't a household name, but when Carlos Santana first heard his music, something inside him shifted. It was the late 1960s, and Santana's producer Clive Davis played him Dreams, an album where Szabó blended Hungarian folk, jazz, and Indian classical music. Santana was floored. Here was someone making the guitar speak in dialects Carlos had only dreamed of. He reportedly called his manager at 2 a.m., exclaiming, "This guy is doing what I've been trying to figure out. He's making the guitar speak different languages." What Szabó offered was freedom. Freedom from genre, tradition, and expectation. Szabó's modal scales, hypnotic repetition, and Eastern influences became a blueprint for Santana's later works. Tracks like Samba Pati and Europa reflect this meditative, tension-building style. Szabó taught him that a song doesn't have to climax. It can float, breathe, expand. The two met in person in 1969 at a club in Los Angeles. Szabó reportedly told Santana, "Your guitar already knows how to cry in Spanish. Now teach it to laugh in other languages too." That line stuck with Santana forever. Szabó wasn't just a player, he was a shaman of sound, proving to Carlos that honoring your roots didn't mean being chained to them. You could fuse your heritage with the global, blend ancient with modern, and still sound honest. Carlos learned that musical identity isn't about picking one tradition. It's about respecting them all. Through Szabó, Santana unlocked the courage to be genreless, fearless, and truly universal.
Oh yes, I have nothing but respect and admiration for him. I mean, I always knew that my favorite word for Miles Davis is that Miles Davis is a supreme divine rascal. You know, I know that God loves rascals because he's the only one that could get away with what he got away with in New York or anywhere in the world. He could say and do and be. He was a rascal, you know, and he played by his own rules, not by anybody's rules. You know. He was always very kind to me. I know he scratched a lot of people in interviews, and especially on his biography, on his book. He was always very kind to me, and I'll always treasure that. I know when I get to heaven, he'd be the first person I'm going to look up.
Carlos Santana was still carving out his identity when he saw B.B. King live at the Fillmore West in 1967. That night would forever alter his understanding of what a guitar could do. The moment B.B. played his first note, Carlos later recalled, "I understood that the guitar wasn't just an instrument. It was a voice for everything you couldn't say with words." King's mastery of vibrato, his way of making Lucille cry, laugh, and pray, became the emotional compass for Santana's style. It wasn't about playing 1,000 notes. It was about saying 1,000 things with just one. In the studio, Santana would often stop his band mid-jam and ask, "Are you playing notes, or are you saying something?" This mindset came directly from B.B. King's philosophy: emotion before technique. Their mutual admiration grew over the years. At a 1995 concert, B.B. told Carlos, "You took what I do and made it speak Spanish." That's beautiful, brother. Santana cherished this moment, often referencing it when discussing his musical identity. B.B. King's influence is most evident in Santana's use of long, expressive bends and sustained crying notes. Emotions poured directly into the strings. More than that, B.B. taught Carlos about space, about letting silence breathe between phrases, letting the soul seep through. Carlos once said, "When I bend a string, I'm trying to reach that sacred space B.B. taught me about." For Santana, King was more than the king of blues. He was the high priest of human connection through music.
Miles Davis was like Martin Luther King. He was for all people. An angel is one that says for the highest good of all people. I never saw Miles Davis on black magazines. I saw an interview like this in Baltimore. I have this video with this black person asked Miles Davis, first question he asked Miles Davis, "Mr. Davis, did you ever meet Charlie Parker?" And Miles just lost it. He said, "If I was blonde and my eyes were blue, you fucking know what kind of deodorant I wear. But since I'm black just like you don't know a goddamn thing about me." So no, Miles was not for black people. He was for all people. You know, in fact, you never saw Miles in Ebony magazine in front. You saw him in the back when he died. I'll never forget those magazines for that. You know, so no, he wasn't for black people. You know, there's a lot. He said there's a lot of black people I can't stand. You know, Miles was like water. He had no color. You know, if he played some of that blackness, it's just to put certain white people in their place, but I know from his music and from the way he acted around me that he wasn't black or white. He was transparent like a diamond, you know, like water. That's why I love him. You know, that's why if you know, he never threw blackness on my face. Some people did, but he never threw blackness on my face. Never. You know, neither is Wayne or Herbie or Tony. You know, they're persons first, a unique person.
If B.B. King taught Carlos how to feel, John McLaughlin taught him how to ascend. Their friendship began in the 1970s, bonded not just over music, but over meditation and Eastern philosophy. Both men believed that the guitar was more than wood and wire. It was a spiritual conduit. McLaughlin's work with Miles Davis and his own Mahavishnu Orchestra blew Santana away. He combined lightning speed with spiritual clarity, creating what Santana called divine energy at light speed. Unlike many shredders, McLaughlin wasn't showing off. He was channeling something higher. Their 1973 collaboration, Love, Devotion, Surrender, became a spiritual document. Inspired by their guru, Sri Chinmoy, the album was an exercise in surrender, not to ego, but to oneness. "We weren't competing," Santana said. "We were communing." Carlos credits McLaughlin with expanding his technical vocabulary. Through him, Santana embraced complex time signatures, modal improvisation, and fearless improvisation, all while holding on to his emotional center. "John reminded me that virtuosity should serve love," Santana once said. And that lesson shaped his later career. Even when Carlos plays at his most experimental, there's a spiritual pulse beneath every note, a heartbeat taught to him by John McLaughlin. To Carlos, McLaughlin wasn't just a guitarist. He was a guide, a reminder that music, when aligned with purpose, can transcend entertainment and become enlightenment.
No, I was not surprised because I knew he had that kind of heart. I think only ignorant people are like cows that regurgitate and eat the same thing. I always knew that Miles was a person who had a big heart, and he wanted, his finger wanted to be in what's happening now in the pulse. You know, we love him for that because he was always pushing forward. You know, I saw the influence of Santana on Miles. You know, after he saw Santana, next thing you see, he had congas. And, you know, so he touched us, but we also touch him. I mean, I can say that, you know, because I can say it. It's true, you know. But he taught us, all of us, how to do what we want to, not what accountants or lawyers or CBS or Sony or Warner Brothers. Do what your soul tells you to do. Damn the rules, is the feeling that counts, you know, kind of thing. That's a supreme lesson to teach anybody. You know, execute your heart's convictions. You know.
No one shook Carlos Santana's world quite like Jimi Hendrix. When Santana first saw Hendrix set his guitar on fire at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, he wasn't just watching a performance. He was witnessing a revelation. Watching Jimi that night, I realized I was seeing the future of rock and roll, Santana said. But Hendrix didn't just revolutionize guitar technique. He redefined what it meant to play guitar. Feedback, distortion, effects. These weren't distractions. They were language, intention, spirit. Inspired, Carlos spent months experimenting with amps, pedals, and effects, trying to understand Hendrix's sonic alchemy. "Jimi showed me that the amp is part of the instrument," he explained. "The whole rig has to sing together." But beyond gear and innovation, it was Hendrix's philosophy that resonated most. He taught Santana that there are no rules in music when the heart is in the right place. If it feels right spiritually, it is right musically. Carlos told his band before recording Abraxas. The two briefly became friends before Hendrix's untimely death in 1970. Jimi's words, "Keep pushing the boundaries, brother," became a guiding light for Santana's fearless evolution. Even decades later, Carlos honors Hendrix every time he plugs in. He showed all of us that the electric guitar could be a spiritual instrument. Santana said during Hendrix's Hall of Fame tribute, a tool for touching the face of God. Jimi Hendrix wasn't just Santana's favorite guitarist. He was the cosmic permission slip that told Carlos it was okay, no, necessary, to break the rules and let the music speak from the soul.
I think people understood that Miles was shy, and that we all understood that Miles, like Leonard Bernstein, the first priority is to make the band one band. I mean, if they're like this, it's like that. You know, Miles knew how to play one note that has Earth time, galactic time, celestial time. One note. You know, so if people misunderstand Miles, it's because they rationalize Miles with their mind, not with their heart. If you see Miles from your heart, he's right on. The most important priority is to arouse your band, not the people. You know, once you arouse the band and you get the bass player with the drummer to be one heart, not 10 different heartbeats, but one heartbeat, no flams. No, just one. Not, What do you tell it? There's a video where he tells his nephew Vince, he says, play it on the one, my one. You know, so I understand why Miles did that, you know, because I'm trying to do the same thing myself. I'm trying to make 6 people or 8 people be one beat, one heartbeat. So no, there's no misconception. People are misunderstanding is because they're not thinking right.
Carlos Santana's sound didn't emerge from a vacuum. It was built on the backs of legends, each one offering a different lesson, a new doorway to walk through. From the joyful jazz of Wes Montgomery to the genre-smashing boldness of Hendrix, these 5 guitarists gave Santana more than techniques. They gave him permission to feel, to explore, to channel something greater. What makes Santana special isn't just that he learned from these masters, but that he honored them while forging something entirely his own. His guitar doesn't imitate. It echoes the voices of those who came before, while speaking a language only he could invent. In a world obsessed with speed and precision, Santana reminds us that music's true power lies in intention, in spirit, in soul. And maybe that's the greatest lesson of all. So the next time you hear Carlos Santana bend a note, know that you're hearing echoes of Wes, Gábor, BB, John, and Jimi, channeled through a heart that still believes music is sacred.